From our 22 News Broadcast Center, this is 22 News in Focus.
Welcome to 22 News in Focus. I'm Don Schiffman. The State Department of Elementary and Secondary Education has unveiled its guidelines for reopening schools this fall. There are directives concerning health and safety that have to be met, but it leaves open room for superintendents to create specialized learning plans to meet their district and their students' needs. Teachers and parents have their concerns as well. So on today's program, we're going to be discussing the ideas that teachers have for planning for reopening of schools. And joining me now is Mary Najimy, the president of the Massachusetts Teachers Association. I want to thank you for coming on the program.
Yeah, this is such an important topic.
It really is. I know so many people want to learn so much about this, specifically parents out there. You issued a response to the state's guidance on reopening. What were your points that you feel need to be addressed right now?
Yeah. So first and foremost, there is consensus among educators, students, families, the medical community, the department that the best way to learn is when educators and students are together in the buildings. However, it cannot come at the risk of health and safety, and we believe that the commissioner's guidance, despite that it's supported by some medical professionals, still does not meet enough health and safety standards to move forward.
And can you be a little bit more specific about that? Because, you know, we've talked with superintendents. They say that they have nurses in the buildings, they have hand sanitizer, they have all the proper PPE. They're even going to be handing out face coverings to students who perhaps forget theirs when they come to school or simply can't afford one. Yeah.
So there are multiple factors that have to work together. First and foremost, the standards on physical distancing have been relaxed. To imagine that we can put 20 kids in a room of 750 square feet at 3 feet physical distance is really impossible. That's one big problem that we have to solve. We have had over 2,000 layoffs of educators in the last, just as of June 15th. We cannot go back to school safely with fewer adults. Not every building, particularly in communities of color, have nurses. So we need more nurses, more counselors, more custodians. If fewer kids can get on buses, we're going to need more buses and bus drivers. And none of this can happen without full funding of public education.
Why do you think the social distancing standards are being relaxed? Because like you mentioned, and I heard this directly from the superintendent of Springfield City Schools, that the state standard is going to be 3 feet, but we're hearing in the news, we've been telling all of our viewers that everyone should be doing 6 feet of social distancing. So why would it be different with our children?
Yeah, our children are even more vulnerable. And not only are our children more vulnerable, but the educators that teach them are also vulnerable, and some of them are in high-risk categories and live with family members who are in high-risk categories. So what seems to be happening here is the commissioner is picking the science to justify his reopening plan to suit the lack of state funding, versus the state really stepping up and putting forth not only the Student Opportunity Act as baseline funding, but far more money that it's going to take to cover protective equipment so that we can have a safer reopening plan.
What are you hearing from your membership?
There was not one person who was at all happy about the recommendations. The range is from fear to outrage to a sense that we are rushing into a plan. Many educators are saying it's beginning to feel like they're science experiments. And the question that is being asked right now amongst educators and many families is, if we are phasing in opening of the economy, why are we not phasing in opening of public education?
But what I'm hearing too, though, is that there's room for flexibility here as they move throughout these stages, for example, and superintendents are being directed to be very flexible. So if numbers go up, for example, they're going to pull back. More students will be maybe taught from home, for example, remote learning.
So even though there's flexibility, the fundamental things we have to understand is it takes full staffing and more staff than we already have. If there are some kids learning at home while others are in school, is the teacher supposed to do two sets of learning at the same time? We need more money. We cannot do this on a shoestring budget, and that is what the state is expecting us to do.
Do you feel like there's a lack of communication? Because I bring that up because you mentioned that one aspect where you question whether that teacher is going to be responsible for two different lesson plans, for the lesson plan for the students who are in-house and a lesson plan for the students who are remote learning.
You know, you can't do more with less. That's one of the things I can't emphasize strong enough. No matter how much flexibility is built into the plan, if we don't have full funding and full staffing, we cannot return and safely.
What happens next now with all of this? Because does this mean it's going to happen? Or if there's enough pushback from your organization, could things change?
Right. So many things actually have to happen. The Massachusetts Teachers Association is working directly with the commissioner now, trying to negotiate real guidance and standards and regulations that bring consistency. At the same time, we are supporting each and every one of our teachers' unions at the local level to engage their families and their communities and work with their superintendents to create a plan. But the most important thing has to be we have much more consistency and much more safe regulations coming out of the department. And we are really working at that level as the MTA.
We're going to continue our conversation after a short break. You're watching 22 News in Focus. Back here now, 22 News in Focus. Today we are talking about teacher input into the reopening of public schools with Mary Najimy, the president of the Massachusetts Teachers Association. I want to talk about what the state would like to see happen for the schools reopening. State and federal education grants are being made available to support schools reopening and remote learning technology as well. So how would you like to see all of that money spent?
So first of all, these are competitive grants. We are not in a moment where competition is going to help. We're talking about people's lives are at stake. So the federal government and the state government both have the ability to raise progressive revenues. We need the HEROES Act to be passed at the federal level. And then we've offered the governor several ways that he can raise progressive revenues on wealthy individuals and corporations in Massachusetts so that we can recall the over 2,000 educators who have been laid off, bring in a school nurse and more counselors, more custodians, more bus drivers, and full funding of personal protective equipment. That's how we can return safely.
Every district has to come up with a plan by August that includes 3 options, and the first one would be in-person learning with new safety requirements. Option B, a hybrid of in-person and remote learning, and then C, remote learning. Each is also needs to have a focused plan for serving special students populations across each of these models. Are you working with school districts as to come up with an individualized plan?
We're working both at the state level with the commissioner to really make sure that the plans can have much more consistency, change some regulations to give everybody the ability to phase in their plans. And then our job is not to work directly with the locals, but that's the role of each teachers union within each school district.
So what are your concerns about separating students between those, say, at home and those at school? And is there going to be a learning gap? And you kind of mentioned this before a little bit, just talking about, as far as teachers, what they're going to be responsible for, 2 different lesson plans and stuff like that. But what are your concerns on the students' end?
So we do know that being away from each other has taken a toll on the emotional health and well-being of everybody, our students, their families, educators. If we are going to do some level of a hybrid model with some children at home, we have to be able to get the remote learning plans to a place where they serve everybody's needs. So there's going to need to be more professional development for educators, and quite honestly, more professional development for families on how to support their students at home. We're going to need internet access for everybody in urban communities and in rural communities. The further west you go out, the worse the internet connection is. And even though districts did the best that they could to provide the technology, the hardware, there wasn't a lot of IT support. So if we do have some hybrid, these are some real problems that have to be solved.
Yeah, you mentioned the western part of the state. You got the Berkshires, for example, also Franklin County. I mean, internet access, it can be problematic in very rural areas. What are you hearing from parents and students?
Exactly that their connectivity is either non-existent or unreliable. And not only that, but when you have multiple kids in a home all trying to learn at the same time, and parents who are working from home, it's not an environment that is conducive to learning. And for many kids, school is the safest environment. So really, our ultimate goal is to bring everybody back, but in a way that is phased in and in a way that is safe. And regardless, internet connectivity should be a public good. It should be a public utility, and the state really has to focus and get that right.
So students have been learning remotely for a couple of months now, or had been. What has students learned? What have teachers learned from that experience, and what can they bring from that experience into the fall?
Yeah, we don't even call it remote learning. We call it crisis learning remotely. The things that we have learned is the only way, to the degree that it has worked because relationships were established between educators and their students for 7 months. We've also, one of the biggest challenges is to motivate kids when they're not together in schools. So we need to come up with real solutions if there's going to be some level of learning from home. We have to solve the problem of motivation. And finally, we actually have to solve the problem of participation. Students' participation was low, not mostly, but a lot in communities that are low-income communities, but also in some of the more affluent communities, participation was low. So we've learned that we have a lot of problems that need more time and more thought and more participation of educators and families to solve.
Okay, so you call it crisis learning, but there has been talk, and I'm from New York State, and so I pay attention to what's happening there, and hearing the governor there mention that the future of education could be with remote learning in some sense. When you hear that, what do you think? What comes to mind right away?
So that is the voice of the ed tech vultures whose agenda is to privatize public education. And the governor of New York is from the party called Educators for Democratic Reform. They have a pro-privatization agenda. And the one lesson that everybody has learned from this pandemic is remote learning is not the way of the future. Learning happens when we are in person, building relationships, challenging each other, working in teams. So online learning is not the way to go.
All right, and just to be clear, that's New York State. I just brought that topic up. That hasn't really been discussed here in Massachusetts.
Yeah, but although that is a trend, that is a dangerous trend that has been moving through public education for a good decade or so.
It's interesting. All right, we're going to continue our conversation. You're watching 22 News in Focus. Back here now, 22 News in Focus, and today we're talking about teacher input into the reopening of public schools with Mary Najimy, the president of the Massachusetts Teachers Association. So the MTA on your website has provided ideas on school reopening in a document entitled Reopening and Reimagining Our Public Schools, Directives for the State and Guidelines for Educators and Their Unions. In it are outlined some key directives. What does full funding for public schools include?
So the starting point is the full implementation of the Student Opportunity Act that was passed in the fall. The next phase is we need money to repair buildings. The HVAC systems in our oldest buildings do not meet air quality standards. The heating systems, we have heard for several years that go back in August, buildings in May, sometimes even in December, are 94 degrees plus. We need a nurse in every building. We need more counselors, especially as the trauma of all kids coming back is going to be more acute. We need smaller class sizes, more paraprofessionals, more custodians. So it's both personnel and the physical plant, as well as personal protective activity. It's equipment. It's those three things, staffing, building, and PPE, that are going to allow us to return safely.
It's interesting you bring up the HVAC system because that's one of the issues right now with COVID-19, making sure that there's enough circulation inside any building that you're in. I want to get to the MCAS tests. Another directive involves reimagining curriculum and instruction and assessment, including the elimination of MCAS. So what changes or improvements would educators like to see and support systems to enhance the teaching and learning process?
So let's go right back to the Massachusetts Constitution, which defines the purpose of public education as preparing citizens to defend rights and liberties, to live in a democracy. It has been the position of the MTA for decades that the MCAS has narrowed the purpose of education. It has pushed out the arts. It, in fact, does not leave time for recess in the most underperforming schools. It's a racially biased test, and we need to put MCAS aside permanently for the long-term change. Our curriculum, especially now, needs to be based in the theories of how to support traumatized kids. We need to move towards an anti-racist curriculum, especially in this moment of Black Lives Matter. And in addition, we're not going to be able to cover as much content moving forward. MCAS is going to be the shadow hanging over us that gets in the way of the mission of ahead of us right now.
Okay, you mentioned Black Lives Matter, and we're also talking about COVID-19. So taking both of those moments in time, what can you use? I'm trying to word this the best way. What positive can come out of, say, COVID-19 and come out of Black Lives Matter when it comes to education?
Yeah, I think the convergence of the two moments has taught us that, public education is the foundation of public education still is based on structural racism. That comes just as we're seeing in society. Structural racism is baked into the disinvestment in funding, in curriculum. We have a Eurocentric curriculum. The Black Lives Matter movement is calling for ethnic studies. It's about transforming how our teaching practices, it's our discipline practices. So the lessons about structural racism are exposed, and it is our moment to dismantle those systems both in society and in public education by transforming what we do and how we fund public education.
And do you feel that with COVID-19, I hear a lot of people say with COVID-19 and with the, basically everything being shut down for so long, it's almost an opportunity to reset. Do you find that that this reset is a possibility for our school districts, our education system here in this country, in this state, for a reset in that as well?
It really is. What happens in schools is a mirror of what's happening in society. And if we are trying to transform our society to really understand structural racism and dismantle it and work towards justice, both racial and economic. It's not just racial justice. People from low-income backgrounds have been subjected to the same austerity or underfunding as communities of color. So we can transform our systems in society, and we can transform our systems inside of public education.
All right, as we move forward here, school will happen in the fall, most likely 99% chance that students will be going back into a classroom. What is your advice to parents? What is your advice to students and to teachers?
I would say the job ahead of us right now is to really feel that we have to do this right, which means let's not rush to jump into plans that are only half-baked, that are going to create more health and safety problems than they are going to solve. So the advice is, let's team up, let's work together, let's create a vision for how we return to school, taking into consideration everybody's safety, health, and wellness.
Do you worry that students will head back to school in September, and then by the end of October, they're back home because everything has to shut down again?
Yes. The science, this disease is too new. The science is continuing to evolve. All of the recommendations that are being made by the American Association of Pediatrics that supported the plan are not absolutes. There's an acknowledgement in their own document that these are goals to get children back, and we think children may not be vectors, all while the next day we get a report that 8%, actually nearly 10% of children living in Department and Family housing institutions came up with COVID. So we have to get this right. There is too much at stake. And if we rush into opening schools too early, everybody's going to lose.
Well, the final word right after this. You're watching 22 News in Focus, and I want to thank our guest, Mary Najimy, the president of the Massachusetts Teachers Association. Thanks for coming on the program.
You're welcome. Let's get this right.
Definitely. All right. And if you missed this, you can watch it in its entirety at our website at wwlp.com. Have a good day.